Today, I'm personally speaking. Our guest is actress Patty McCormack, an Oscar nominee, a great actress now appearing on the New York stage. Please stay with us. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Monsignor Jim Lisante, and actress Patty McCormack joins me now. Audiences will recognize Patty from her more than 7 decades of stage, screen, and television appearances, which include her Oscar-nominated performance in The Bad Seed, to work in the Oscar-nominated Frost Nixon and The Master. Patty's extensive theatrical work began with her Broadway debut at the age of 6 in Touchstone, co-starring Ossie Davis. After Touchstone, she created, at 8 years old, the iconic character of Rhoda Penmark in the Broadway production of The Bad Seed, the role she later transferred from the stage to Mervyn LeRoy's classic film. Patty has over 250 television appearances to her credit, which include memorable characters on popular series from Dallas to The Sopranos. Patty is currently starring in New York City with actor Dan Lauria in a play he's written called Just Another Day. It's a play that deals with the complexity of aging, memory loss, and connection, human connection. Patty's here with us today to talk about Just Another Day, her life, her career, her Catholic background and values, those things that mean the most to her. Joining me, I'm so pleased to welcome to Personally Speaking the Academy Award-nominated actress, Patty McCormack. We are delighted to have Patty McCormack on Personally Speaking. She's now appearing on the New York stage in a wonderful play, Just Another Day. And Patty, first of all, thanks for coming on Personally Speaking. And importantly, tell us about this play and why I hope my listeners and watchers around the world, when they come to New York, will see you and Dan Lauria in this wonderful work. Tell us about Just Another Day.
Oh, okay. Just Another Day was written, as you know, by Dan Lauria. And it came from a real life experience with him that he had with a friend's father. I know that.
Okay.
And the fact how mysterious, it is to age and suffer from dementia,
Right.
and but I make it sound so serious. But the truth is, and here's the big difference. This is interesting. The big difference between this play about Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever, we're not really sure, is that it's only viewed through the relationship of the two people who have it.
Okay. It's
not an overview of the family's experience and the trouble that it ensues and all that stuff. It's only the really day-to-day communication between these two people who I would be, Dan doesn't like to say anything is solid, and he wants the audience to fill in. But for myself, we meet every day in outdoors at a park bench, and it's as though we've met each other for the first time.
Wow.
We are told that a friend is going to be there. And we come out in the first act. I come out looking for this friend. And then I ask if I can sit, and we begin. And by the end of the first act, we have figured out quite a bit about who we are.
Yeah. It sounds.
Act two starts with a reversal in our personalities. And he kind of comes out looking a little lost. And I'm ready to go writing because we're comedy writers. Did I mention that?
No, that's interesting.
That's important. Yeah. We're comedy writers. And apparently somewhere in our time together when we were younger, I know in the script it says I was married 3 times, and he makes a joke about that.
Okay.
I'm guessing that he was the middle marriage. Because she left to pursue a dream, I guess, to write poetry. And he and she were actually comedy writers on something maybe that was like Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And then she actually left, I guess, the relationship and everything to pursue that. So there's all he deals with that in his own self, always
Mm-hmm.
loved her. And what happens is each act, it's like we fall in love again.
Ah,
And through lots of laughs, believe it or not, lots of comedy. and and by the end of the second act, um, there is a little extra thing that happens at the end, where it kind of confuses the audience, I think, a little bit,
mm-hmm.
because we are still together, um, and we're talking about a whole different thing. We're talking about I had a nightclub act, and he had this, and he had. So we're fanciful,
Okay.
creative people who find that each day, if we create with one another, one of the lines is we're not lost
Right, right. Well, that,
because
Pat,
we're Mhm.
no, go
That's
ahead,
it.
Patty. Go ahead. Really.
No, just that we're connected that way through creativity. And as long as we're allowed to create, uh, there are, um, we come alive.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
And, when Dan was with us, he told us that one of the reasons he wanted to do this play was because there's so little out there that explores the aging process. And so I want to ask you, Patty, because you've been front and center since you were a kid. Now you and
Yeah.
I are not kids anymore, but I got to ask you, how have you personally navigated the experience of aging? I mean, aging is great, and that longer aging, we're not dead, but
Right.
it is a challenge for people when they, especially you start out as a child actress and you go through all these years, and now you and I are in the so-called golden years. And I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
how have you been able to put a great perspective on the aging thing without being in any way
Okay.
intimidated by it?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was an odd kind of actress, I have to say, because to start with, because of the childhood thing, first of all,
Hmm.
and having reached a level of what you'd call notoriety, fame, young,
Right.
I didn't have an illusion or delusion about what that could do in life for you. Like,
Mm.
so it's so interesting to me. I really did think about this, that it didn't make me that ambitious to have it.
Right. Okay.
And okay. And with that, it kind of slowed me up, career wise, really, um,
Mm.
because I knew that it wasn't an answer. The same thing that drives most young artists, actors, whatever.
Yeah.
Part of that, I think, is the dream that all things will be okay.
Wow. Nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I
And
do. I do.
and it's okay. And I didn't have that one. So I could have looked a little lazy or what in my middle years. Um, but what I did want was I have had a wonderful big sister
Hmm.
who had a family and who did everything more on the normal side and got her education. The kids got educated. She had a good marriage. She died young,
Oh,
but I always admired her life,
mm.
and I think that's what made me want to be married, have children, which I did.
Yes.
And so that kind of, what I'm trying to say is I think it wasn't a priority in my life.
Right, right. Or I would say you had perspective. You knew that acting was enjoyable and a nice career, but you also treasured family, which is wonderful. One of my
Yeah.
dearest friends in your business was Patricia Neal. Pat and I were friends
Oh,
for many
yeah.
years. I loved her a lot, but she said, to have success in acting and she was trying to raise five kids. She said was really
Wow.
sometimes a juggle that was beyond me. Uh,
Yeah.
and I just wondered, like, when it came down to here's a great part for Patty McCormack, or I got to spend time with my kids. How do
Yes.
you, how do you make that choice what to do with
Yeah.
time? How do you do it?
Well, you do, whatever happens at that time.
Hmm.
There were many years that I could have uh traveled, done theater around the country, etc. Because it was still early on, closer to my original fame.
Right.
Um, and I chose not to do that.
Yeah.
So I stuck with TV, which was, minimal. I wasn't locked into a series. I had
Right.
only one series that lasted. It was The Ropers.
Oh, yes.
One when I
Okay.
was a kid called Peck's Bad Girl, which only went on for a season. and and then one called The Ropers, which was a spinoff of Three's Company. And we
Hmm.
lasted a season and a half, you know.
Right. Okay. Now,
So,
because
and it was all, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Patty. No, no, no. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it was all local and
Right. Right.
I lived at home. Yeah.
Because you
So,
were not overwhelmed by ambition, though, it probably made you a better mom and now a better grandma. The kids, your children, did they go into the arts as well, or did they choose entirely different walks of life?
yeah, and different. And I had a lot to do with that. And a part of me thinks, oh, I, downplayed it so much that my son is very musical, but
Hmm.
that's not what he does in life. And
Okay.
recently he said something interesting. I mean, he's upper 50s now.
Right.
He said he's glad that he didn't take that route or try to. He said because he would have probably had an issue with a serious issue with drugs, or may
Mm,
not even be alive anymore because of
right.
the era, you know.
Yes, he's
And
right. He's
and my
right.
yeah, and my daughter. So he does real estate. He has his
Okay.
own company out in California. Um, he has two children, so I have two grandsons with that leg of the family, and two grandsons on the other side with my daughter. My
Okay.
daughter could have been a great actress, I swear. But when I sent her, not for funny reasons, but um, and I sent her to an acting class that was kind of reputable, and she went to one, and she said, "I don't like that," you know. I'm.
All right.
She wanted it to be quick, you know.
Yeah.
Let me just get up and do it. Um, so she's developed. Well, she has a wonderful business
Mm,
that she created, and she's also helped so many young women. She started out in a salon because her dad, my husband, was a hairdresser, and they
okay.
owned salons, and so uh, didn't. She started to do that, and but she's wound up with her own business where she's hired many young women and trained them to do things, and she's got a lot of shops, and she really turned out to be a special person.
Isn't that
Um,
terrific too, though?
yeah,
So you raised a good family, you spent time with them, and no regrets on that side. Now let me ask you this. One of the things I saw you in, Patty McCormack's our guest, is years ago the wonderful movie Nixon Frost, and you playing Pat Nixon. I just wondered, since of all our first ladies, she was certainly
yeah,
one of the most insular, one of the most private people.
right.
And how did you come up with, how do I bring this character, who is such a private lady, into the public domain in this film? I thought you were great, but I wondered, what insight did you have into Pat Nixon that made you so great?
Oh wow, thank you for saying that. um, um, I saw her loneliness,
Mm,
and I saw um, that she was married to somebody that wasn't forthcoming with. I
yeah,
saw it more on a personal level.
right.
Um, and I thought how difficult that must have been. I also learned a lot about her because I don't usually read a whole lot, but
Hmm.
I read a lot about her. And I saw films of her. I went to the archives at UCLA when they had it.
Right.
Um, and I just connected with her sadness, I think,
Yeah.
about not having somebody um, reciprocate with all the love and devotion she gave. Um, and also, what else? What, you know, it struck me that was so strange. It
What's
was
that?
so, you could see he also was really religious, you know,
Mm,
and yet struggled with the career that he chose, which had to do with, you know, cutting people down and
right,
stepping over bodies, you know.
right.
So he probably was tormented. So
Yeah.
um but I thought to myself, when I found out that he changed her birthday for publicity's sake,
Yeah.
I thought, oh my Lord. And I don't think Pat was actually her name,
That's right.
her first name. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
it wasn't her birthday.
I
St.
think her real
Patrick's.
name is Thelma,
Yeah, something really.
right?
And March 17th is not her birthday. I think it's the 16th. So he created her as a, you know, a good running mate, I guess. I don't
Right.
know.
My Irish wife, born on St. Patrick's Day, right? Which wasn't true.
Yeah, it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And that must have been a torment for how he was raised, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not an easy ride, and you're right, there always comes an opportunity where you choose one way or another,
Yeah.
you
You
know,
know,
or many ways. Yeah.
Pat,
So
Patty, you're great as an actress. I love seeing you both in stage and in film. But I want to ask you about this. One of the things you said in another interview, which intrigued me, you said, "Oh, I've wanted to be so many different things in my life. I even thought once I might want to be a nun." It reminded we've had
oh yeah.
Mother Dolores Hart on our program too, who did leave acting to become a nun. All of which leads me into I don't know much about like when you were being raised. Was there a particular uh, religion or
Yeah.
spirituality in the way? Tell me about the way you were raised.
Well, okay. And I'll add something about Mother Dolores too,
Okay.
because I went to, oh, well, I'll jump to that now because I might forget it. Um, I went to Catholic high school. I
Okay.
went to, well, first of all, I go earlier. I had professional school in New York. Then we moved to Los Angeles, and I went to St. Victor's School,
Yeah.
which was in Hollywood. So
Okay.
I did have that and that in me. Earlier than that, in New York, I took training with, oh, I'm just going to think of her name now. Sister Demetria, I think was her
Okay.
name, uh, to do my first communion.
Ah.
And so there was Catholic. It's
Hmm.
Catholic. And then later on, going to St. Victor's, loved it. I loved the whole thing. I loved wearing a uniform, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then wound up at Corvallis at a certain point, which was a Catholic high school, and
Hmm.
then had to really leave because it got to be too difficult to work, and socially it was hard because you're
Yeah.
taken out of the mix, then you go back in the mix, and these people were not working in the business. So
Okay.
I wound up going to finish high school. I wound up going to New Utrecht High School, which was public, that my
Mhm.
mother and sister went to. And then I wound up finishing at Hollywood Professional,
Wow.
getting I was everywhere. So, um, but primarily Catholic.
Hmm.
And I tried other things in my middle years, you know,
Right.
you name it, I tried it. I tried, um, I had a mantra, you know, I can't remember
Right.
the
Right.
Maharishi, whatever. Yeah. I had a mantra. I could never remember it though. Isn't that a joke?
Yeah.
I'd have to go up to the person and say, "What is it again?" You know. Anyway, and then I did Nam Myoho, went through Los Angeles, the Renge Kyo, the Buddhist.
Oh,
It
okay.
was Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism. That's what it was. It wasn't the other, you know, the original Buddhist
Right.
thing.
Right.
So, but it was same idea, you know.
So you've explored a lot of different roads
I have.
but you know, once we baptize you, you're a Catholic forever. So
That's the truth. You can't get away.
can't get
I
away. Now let
You
me ask
can't
you
get.
though, for those
Go
who
ahead.
don't know, Patty McCormack is not only a great actress, but she began being a great actress at a very young age. She's a teenager, nominated for an Academy Award. I'm just wondering because Patty, everything that I read about you online talks about down to earth, normal, approachable, not in any way taken with herself. But I'm thinking a kid who gets an Oscar nomination as a teenager, it would be so easy to become a diva, so easy to become so
Mm.
self-impressed. Somehow you have remained normal with your feet on the ground, not controlled by ego. What's the secret? Like, how did you do that?
I think my family were, I always say this, they were not impressed, you know?
Yeah.
So, and my dad did support us. You know, a lot of times the kid becomes I did later on help in a
Hmm.
tremendous way when they were no longer married. But
Okay.
I early on, my dad was the person who supported us as a fireman and in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And my mom was my mom had a real energy that should have been expressed somewhere. She was
Mhm.
a roller skater, speed skater
Wow.
before it went on television.
Oh, amazing.
And when
Yeah.
she married, she quit like people did, you
Hmm.
know? And I think she always had that desire to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And I think I became her, you know, ticket out, so to speak,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yes. Um, but but in communication and family issues and all that stuff, they were not well, nobody was really dependent upon my income.
Hmm.
That's a good starter.
Right.
And secondly, different things matter to them. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Okay.
Yep.
Patty, you and I are having this interview on the anniversary 80 years ago of D-Day. Did your dad have a chance to serve in the military?
You know, he didn't.
He
He
didn't.
didn't
Okay.
know because he had something was wrong. Either it was his feet or something.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
yeah, he did not. He
That's
was
interesting.
the closest he had was the connection that's almost like military with the firemen and the
Right.
camaraderie
Right.
and you know. But
Well,
he was
let's
not.
go back to that Brooklyn experience. I'm born in Brooklyn. You're born in Brooklyn. Where were you
Yeah,
guys? Where in Brooklyn were you at?
I lived on 53rd Street between 17th Avenue and 16th Avenue.
Wow. Okay.
And that block in the old days was like half of Jewish one side. I swear it was broken up like that, like a joke. And
Right.
the other half was Italian,
Yes.
Irish, whatever, Catholic. Yep. Yep.
Our family was East 17th Street between U and V. So,
Oh, nice.
hi there, neighbor. How are you? And very much
How,
the experience of you're right, that wonderful mix. Now, of course, Brooklyn is mixed through everyone in the world. Let me ask this: you're getting
yeah.
on the stage every night to do this wonderful play, just
Yeah.
another day. I'm just wondering because look, I do a homily on Sunday. I do a few masses and funerals, and I'm tuckered by the end of the day. How do you, at
Yeah.
this point in life, find the energy to get up
Yeah.
there and project every night to a whole new audience and try to make it meaningful for them? Where does the
Mhm.
energy come from in Patty McCormack to keep on belting it out there?
I think I owe a little to my mom, huh? Maybe,
Okay.
you know, she had the um uh I don't know. I just it's such a wonderful thing to be able to still function. It took
Yeah.
me forever to learn this part. It took me forever. I there are so many words in it. You know. Anyway,
It's just the two of you, right? So it's
yeah, it's
a
just the two of
continuous
us.
dialogue between two. That's a hard thing in a play. You don't have a whole lot of distractions to take you away from it all. You're right in the middle of it all the time.
Yep, you're right there. And if you're not right there, it makes a difference, you know?
But let me ask you this too. This is really kind of a more attitude toward life in the world. You know, Patty, as well as I, that everyone is out there saying that the world is a mess. Our country's so divided. There's such a mess. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking of one of the first people I interviewed was Frank Capra, who did It's a Wonderful Life. And Frank would say he
yeah,
thought physical illness wasn't half as challenging as discouragement. And a lot of people are discouraged in our society. They don't
yeah.
have a lot of hope. But you sound like a happy, upbeat person. Where does Patty McCormack get her hope from?
I have no idea. I, um, you know, this sounds awful because it's so not Dan Lauria, you know.
Right.
I stopped listening to the news.
Okay.
Because I swear I had to do that. And I I remember people saying that night in the old days, and I thought, well, that's not cool, you know.
Right.
But I just try. I know that life is not to be corny. I know life is short.
Yeah.
And it goes quick.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, I'm at the end now. You know, I'm at the last chapters,
Right. Yeah.
and I don't want to bemoan everything.
Yeah.
I just want to try to be nice to the people I run into,
Mhm.
and try to be a decent person. Try not to be too hateful, which I
Yeah.
can be, believe me, you know. Um, and
That's a great way to live your life, Patty. I like that a lot. And
I,
and
I mean, it's selfish. It's selfish a little bit at this point because I'm not in the middle of helping the street people, say, for
yeah.
instance,
Yeah.
or, and you don't want to give money. And you know that, it's just, that's what they mean with it's a mess. It's
Mhm.
like it's like the tone of politics and everything.
Yeah.
Even in our family, we're split. There are Trumpers and there are
Right.
Biden.
Bidenites. Right. Right.
Yeah, Bidenites. Um, and it has caused division, which is just like the world, you
Yeah.
know? And all the networks carry only their own information, which is
Right.
really, CNN's a little bit, they'll give a little here, a little there. But, you go to MSNBC, it's absolutely
Right.
one way. And you go to Fox News,
That's
and
the other way. Right.
it's
Right.
the other way. It's like, what happened to good old reporting?
Right.
You know,
Balance. Balance. Yeah. Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Patty,
Anyway,
Patty, Patty McCormack, thank you so much for being on our program. For those who have a chance to, if you're in New York, Just Another Day is the play that Patty and Dan Lauria are appearing in. Great, great insight into the whole process of getting older and
yes.
dealing with that. So please see it if you can. But more importantly, this very successful working actress her whole life is also someone who's known, and I understand why now, as a good, normal, down to earth, unfazed by her success. She has stayed wonderfully regular. And Patty, I just think that's a wonderful gift to us. You're honest, you're direct, and you're also, whether you want to admit it or not, a very kind woman. And I thank you for sharing your kindness with us on Personally Speaking.
Wow, you really touch. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us on Personally Speaking. If you need to reach me, you can do that at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. In addition to acting as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking, I'm also the pastor of Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Massapequa Park, New York, where we post daily Mass on YouTube. So please join us at Mass. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.